r/MaliciousCompliance. First story. I will be playing this in front of the whole class lol okay. I was talking to some friends from undergrad and this story from my freshman year came up again. Having recently stumbled upon this subreddit from r/stories about Kevin. Weirdly, I think this might belong. Second semester of my freshman year, I was taking a music theory course. The professor was very serious about her job and this class was a bit of a weed out class for students who wanted to pursue music education. I was taking it for fun. By the time the end of the semester rolled around, I got the feeling she didn't really like me much because I didn't pay attention in class, but still got A's on the homework/exams/playing tests. I'd played piano for a decade by this point, so she couldn't really punish me for anything since I wasn't disrupting the class, but was just a thorn in her side through lack of participation. Thank God that wasn't part of our grade. Our final project was to find a poem we liked and craft a song using the poem as the lyrics. As she passes out the requirement sheet, she announced that she would be playing these for the class, so we need to put in effort so that we don't feel embarrassed by what she plays in front of everyone, about 30 people. She shoots a glance at me, the least involved student, as she says that, which I took as a challenge. I found a poem called A Minor Bird and decided to craft my masterpiece in the key of E flat minor. The reasoning. 6 of the 7 notes are lowered a half step. So it's not a matter of thinking everything I see is lowered, it's everything but one note is lowered, which is fairly hard to keep track of while sight reading something that utilizes both hands on the piano. We were to hand them in at the beginning of class and she would go through the stack and play them without practicing first. It's a freshman level class. How hard could it be? I spent weeks working on this because I wanted to make sure it was both well written and an absolute bitch to play. I had a perclassman take a look at it to make sure everything was labeled correctly, and they told me I was the most magnificent bastard ever because this prof had irked most of the students in the department who had taken her class. Then the day comes. We all turn our papers in, and I'm visibly excited by everything. The prof comes in and goes full Darlor's Umbridge. I certainly hope everyone met the requirements and put care into their work. If not, we'll soon find out. Goes to the piano and pulls the first paper off of the stack and makes some comments about it that aren't negative, but are a bit goading regarding the amount of effort it seemed to take to write it. She, apparently, pulls mine up about 2/3 of the way, sits down to play it, and stops at the first chord. She looks around, makes eye contact with me, and straight up glares, before regaining her composure and plunking through my piece. There's several chords that make a nice crunch before she corrects herself. The damn not flat note tripped her up every time, and it sounds like whoever wrote this piece did a shit job because of how it sounded. At the end, the meek international student who has perfect pitch raises her hand and goes, "Excuse me, Drive? That piece just played. It has 6 flats in the key." Yes, prof. Yes, it did. I didn't quite expect that, student. You didn't play all 6 flats. It didn't sound. Prof turns, glares at me, and goes, No, I did not. Got a 97% because she marked a chord label incorrect. Went back in and showed her that she missed the not flat note in the chord and that it was actually labeled correctly. Got it changed to a 100%. TL, Dr. Music Professor threatened to play our pieces in front of us so we would work harder on it. I wrote something she couldn't play. Edit. I have the music played by Finale Notepad and have made an account just to upload it here. Enjoy. Unfortunately, I have no idea where the sheet music is at this point. That class was spring '09, and I've had a lot of life happen since then. Edit 2. The sheet music is definitely not on my current computer. The MP3 source also says it was created via Melody Assistant, not Finale, in case anyone cares that much. The best I can provide for pics, or it didn't happen, is this, which is just the text of the poem in a Word document with the date. Nothing too exciting. I'm going to see if my parents can find my old laptop at their house, and I'll search for the sheet music on there, and I'll share it with everyone who has asked, both publicly and privately, for a copy of it. Edit 2.5. With my new job in the real world, I haven't had vacation time to go back to visit my parents to find said sheet music. I've had quite a few people message me / comment to ask for it, so I'm sorry to disappoint still. There have been a few other people in the comments who posted a link to their reverse sheet music creations, and they look to be pretty close. The beginning starts with a pickup note on beat 4, so that throws a lot of the computer created versions off. I'll post comments from the people who messaged me this as well, because this post is about to be archived, and I won't be back home before then. Second story. Neighbor tells Gramps he should mind his own damn business. That advice costs neighbor most of his yard and a car. Gramps had just moved into a retirement park with a lot that backed up to county land that was a nature preserve. His backyard was basically non-existent, but he didn't mind as he got to look out over the preserve. However, he did marvel at how his next door neighbor's backyard extended a good 8 feet past his, giving neighbor a nice space back there. Gramps tried to be friendly with all his new neighbors, exchanging phone numbers and the like, and one day he noticed the next door neighbor was putting down expensive pavers that extended from his back door all the way to the old fence posts that designated the preserve boundary. Gramps watched the neighbor yank the 3 rickety fence posts out of the ground and move them back an extra 2 feet into the preserve before pounding them back in, then started to clear the land, intending to gain himself more area for his pavers. Gramps used to work for the National Park Services as a young lad, so he thought he had better warn his neighbor of the consequences of his actions, so he heads out back for a little chat. Neighbor is immediately defensive, and before Gramps says much, neighbor tells him, "You're new here, I've been here 10 years and to mind your own damn business." Gramps decides not to press the issue. Nothing happens that year, but the following year when most of the park emptied out to head north for the summer, the county comes by to check on the preserve. Gramps notices them going back and forth behind his neighbor's house. The workers are pulling out maps and taking photos and making phone calls, and soon more guys show up. Turns out neighbor has moved the posts several times over the years, and in reality his backyard is supposed to be even smaller than Gramps' backyard. To make it worse, neighbor put pavers in the back specifically to park both his golf cart and a cherry red sports car back there for the summer, so the county will have to move them before they can do anything else. They tape a notice to the front door and leave. Gramps goes over to read it, and it states that neighbor was in violation of encroaching onto protected lands. He has 30 days to move his car, tear up the pavers, and pay a fine of $11,000 because of damage to endangered species who inhabit the protected lands, as well as trespassing fees. Failure to do so within 30 days will result in golf cart and car being towed and impounded. Pavers will be dug up and carted off at neighbor's expense, and the fine will increase for every additional day past the deadline. 30 days comes and goes, so a week after that Gramps has quite the show as first the car and cart were towed, pavers were dug up and hauled off, and the old fence posts and ropes were replaced with metal posts embedded into buried cement bases, connected by steel cables. Whole process took several weeks to finish, but the preserve looked a lot more legit when they were done. A few solar cameras were installed so the county could monitor the wildlife and encroachers remotely. Meanwhile, more notices were taped to the front door of neighbor's house. By November, the snowbirds were flooding back into the park, including neighbor. That was Gramps' second show of the summer as neighbor reads all the notices, digging down until he reads the first one, then runs out back and starts screaming and cussing up a storm before running back to his car to dig out his cell phone so he can call the county to find out where his car and golf cart were. Gramps stays indoors to avoid the guys. He is frantically trying to unload his car, turn on his water and electricity, get the yak and the toilets going, and all the while trying to get someone at county to pick up the phone and give him some answers. He finally gets a live person and proceeds to scream at them while on speakerphone about his car and cart, so the call keeps getting kicked to other people because who wants to help a screamer? Basically, neighbor is told to come to the county office to get this straightened out. 3 days later, neighbor catches Gramps outside and asks if he was here when the county stole his car and destroyed his backyard. Gramps said he was, and neighbor says, "Well, why didn't you call me when you saw them putting notices on my door? You had my number up north." Gramps said he had thought about doing that, but figured neighbor would prefer him to mind his own damn business, so he decided against it. Third story. You've been randomly selected This happened about 3 years ago while going through an airport in the US. I walked through the metal detector, something must have beeped, and they needed to pat me down. After a thorough pat down, I put my shoes on and started to walk over to grab my bag. SAT agent stops me and says, "You've been randomly selected. Please step into the body scanner." I was polite, but said that I really didn't want to get into the body scanner and asked if there was another way. The agent said that I could get a pat down. I said, "Well, I just got a pat down, so." They angrily told me to pick an option. So, I took 2 steps backwards to the woman who had patted me down 30 seconds ago and spread M again. While she was patting me down, I asked her if she found anything new. She stared daggers at me, but let me go.